Here we go again with Mixtape. This game, man, I swear, every single time I find something new about it, it's against my will. Now we have people running defense, and the developers exposing their so-called indie game as being nothing at all like an indie game. So Mixtape has music in it, obviously, it's 28 songs, all licensed, and a lot of people will try to gaslight you into thinking, no, this is totally normal for an indie game to have. Is that right? Well, okay, look at this from GoNintendo.com. Mixtape song licenses were paid in perpetuity, so don't expect licensing issues to lead to a delisting. Also, nice username for your editor there, Raw Meat Cowboy. What is going on? Anyways, that headline is kind of ridiculous for a lot of reasons. As Go Nintendo says here, it's very normal for many games out there to lose their licenses to their musical tracks over time because licenses expire or what have you. However, for Mixtape, the totally indie game, please trust us guys, this is a non-issue, which is, getting backlash because it's kind of the anti-everything indie, honestly. The creative director of Mixtape spoke to Kotaku in an interview, which, as seen here, confirms that all the licenses for the songs in Mixtape have been paid in perpetuity. So that should make the game immune to takedowns, and the same goes for the song. So in other words, as long as you have a platform that Mixtape was released on, you should be able to purchase it for years, if not decades after launch. That is insane to admit, because this cements that there is no way that this game is an indie game at all. Let me tell you how crazy this is to admit, alright? Licensing music is, very expensive. This is why whenever a game has a remaster or even a remake at some point, it's not uncommon for licensed songs that were in the original version to be gutted in the sequel or whatever. For example, right, look here from Game Rant in 2021 when it came to the Grand Theft Auto trilogy remasters. As they say there's quite a few songs missing from the original versions of these classic games once they got remastered for, modern hardware. We all know how notorious and integral GTA's radio stations are to the overall experience that is Grand Theft Auto. Like, everyone knows this. Every radio station has tons of licensed songs from all over the music world. Heavy metal, rock, hip-hop, rap, you name it. Vice City, for example, as you can see here, lost songs from Ozzy Osbourne, Michael Jackson, and Kate Bush, that's just to name a few. San Andreas, as you can see here, they lost a lot of songs from Tupac, Rage Against the Machine, James Brown, and more too. So all of this was taken out of the GTA remasters because these songs were understandably very expensive to renew. Therefore, instead of wasting money, I guess, Rockstar, they just simply removed them altogether in these newer versions, which, I know that sucks for obvious reasons. It's not that Rockstar couldn't afford it, they can, but they just didn't want to, but the fact that Mixtape with its 28 song track list was able to secure these forever licenses for their songs makes me firmly believe this game, it has money behind it, the likes of which indie has probably never seen. Because what indie game that you know of that can afford 28 fully licensed songs from big creators like The Cure and more? We already know the Australian government gave Mixtape something around $98,000 to get the project started. That's normal. Many games, indie especially, use government subsidiaries to get started, but there's no way that $98,000 there was like a startup bonus from Australia's government could somehow make this entire game and also pay for all the music licenses. Like, that's just frankly impossible. So from what I've seen online, the prices for music can vary wildly, right? Somewhere from $10 to $150 per track if that song is royalty free. For some indie artists, the cost can rise into the thousands, and then for the major label songs, the price can jump to $50,000 plus per song alone. Meaning, with Mixtape's grant, it's impossible without outside money helping them. Obviously, we know that Annapurna published a game, and Annapurna is founded and controlled by Megan Ellison, the daughter of the guy who owns Oracle of all things, who's worth like $200+ billion and then some. So likely, this is how Mixtape was able to secure their songs, because they had Avengers Tony Stark publishing money behind them. And it makes sense for Mixtape to want to get those forever contracts for each song, since the entire game, which is basically a movie despite what others will try to say, completely hinges as an experience on every single song played, since the songs are, integral to the game's plot and how every sequence plays out in it. So I get it, removing these songs would ruin the entire point of Mixtape, okay? But either way, the fact that they were able to get these songs that they wanted despite being indie is where a lot of people are thinking, well, this is kind of suspicious, isn't it? Here's all the songs in Mixtape as seen here, by the way. A lot of this music is from the 90s and the 80s. For example, you have songs like Rainbow, which has Ronnie James Dio of all people doing lead vocals on it. So in case you you don't know who that is, Ronnie D, like, dude, Dio is like one of the best metal vocalists of all time, okay? That song also has Richie Blackmore on guitar. Like, that's a legend. This song alone probably costed them a pretty penny. Other artists like Iggy Pop or the Smashing Pumpkins and more, these are not unknown names, okay? These are very well-known musical artists. You may know, okay, you know the ending song Punk Rocker in James Gunn's Superman if you saw that movie? That song features Iggy Pop, right? The same artist who's also in Mixtape. Again, not cheap at all. The likelihood is the license for these songs were way more than what most studios pay because, again, if Rockstar, with their Grand Theft Auto money, were not willing to pay for the perpetuity licenses, tell me exactly how much money Mixtape has behind it to do that as well. So I decided, whatever, right? Let's just ask Google this very question, because why not, right? So here you go. I asked Google, hey, how much would an Iggy Pop song cost me if I wanted to put it in my video game forever? As seen there, Google theorizes it would cost me somewhere around $15,000 to $100,000 or more depending on the song. As seen here, songs are usually in different tiers. You have the big hits, the B-sides, you get the idea. These songs would then range somewhere near $50,000 a song to again over $100,000 depending on who you're going after. Apparently, most major publishers tend to license out music in 5 to 10 year intervals. And then they decide to extend these licenses depending on whether they want to keep using these said songs in their products going forward. So from what I can tell, it also depends on your studio size. So a Rockstar with GTA will be charged more for the same song as opposed to a Beethoven and Dinosaurs would, which by the way, that's the indie studio name that made Mixtape. I guess the idea here is that the bigger your studio, the hypothetical bigger reach and budget you would also have, so this all changes. This means that Beethoven and Dinosaurs would have to pay less per mega hit over, say, a Rockstar, but the price would still be in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, depending on whatever song that you wanted, of course. There's also something called the MFN clause, which stands for Most Favored Nations. So if you have two big artists in your game music-wise, they apparently will then charge the same amount depending on whichever has the higher cost. So let's say you have Iggy Pop, right? And they're $100,000 per song, but you have Smashing Pumpkins, they're $120,000. I'm just spitballing here. Then you will have to pay $120,000 for both Smashing Pumpkins and Iggy Pop, according to what I'm reading here. This whole thing is kind of nebulous, but there you go. I'm just trying to make sense of this like everyone else, of course. So I'm not going to say that this information is 100% correct. I understand that. There's definitely holes here. Either way, the likelihood that this entire track list was in somewhere in the millions is very plausible. And again, for an indie studio, I put that in quotations, it just doesn't come across as believable. Like, okay, Hollow Knight, for example, is an indie game. Yes, it's amazing. We all love it. It made a lot of money and all that, I understand. But Hollow Knight's budget was allegedly somewhere between maybe $40,000 to $57,000 in total to get that game made. That is by definition an indie game, right? The likelihood here is a single song on Mixtape's track list alone costed probably more than the entirety that it took to make Hollow Knight. It's like rich kids, right, that are LARPing as struggling musicians or something, you know? Like, you ever seen a hipster kid and they look sort of homeless, but then you look up what their sweater costs and it's like more than what you pay for rent? Like, that's the vibe I'm getting from Mixtape. It's LARPing as something, and honestly, I feel like it does damage to the actual reality of what real indie games go through by trying to push the idea that it is this grassroots, totally not astroturfed game at all when it really is. There is also a way to license music for cheaper, but apparently from what I understand, this other method ties the cost of each song to be paid via the copies that are sold. So the idea is you get the songs for cheaper, but when you sell a copy of the game, you shave off the amount agreed per song from each sale of the game. So you make less per copy sold because you're sharing the overall purchase of each copy with every artist that has a song in it, if that makes sense. But okay, let's say that's the case, right? It would mean that each purchase of Mixtape would then be split between Beethoven and Dinosaurs and Aperna, whichever platform you bought it on, PlayStation, Steam, you name it, and then as well the musical artist too. Which if it's done that way, that wouldn't really leave much for really anybody involved, since each copy of the game is like, what, $18, $20 a pop? But that could be another way that they did it. So I'm just throwing that out there as like a suggestion, right? I can't confirm if that's what they did, but that's something that you can do apparently. But if that's how they went about this, well then like nobody's making anything really off this game at all. Especially since on Steam Steam anyways, it peaked at like 2,000 players, which is, not exactly crazy good either. It would be if you're an indie game, but when you have hundreds of thousands of dollars of songs in it, maybe not. Either way, okay, the media is clearly running the fence for this game because, like I said in a previous video on Mixtape, they kind of have to. As Polygon says here, Mixtape is being torn apart by toxic trolls apparently. They mean you and me. As Polygon says here, the Mixtape discourse is too harebrained and poisoned by trolls, bizarre conspiracy theories, and bad faith arguments to bother going into detail. I bet you think that. I would bet that the vast majority of critics and jury members, even those who don't love the game, would reject its premises outright. So it won't affect Mixtape's chances of a Game of the Year nomination, which are modest but not negligible, right? Well, to be honest, it probably will. Polygon then makes the case, as you can see here, that Mixtape might get shafted because it doesn't have enough real gameplay, and I mean, yeah, it should, because video games, they're interactive in a sense where it needs to be beyond surface level. If we are awarding high marks to games that basically have zero mechanics or interactivity that truly matters, and then the industry awards said games with glowing praise and statues and acclaim and all that, it's going to be a punch in the face to any gameplay designer who's out here trying to make their games, well, video games. Because why bother making sure your controls feel perfect like a Hollow Knight does? Why make your worlds big and interactive like a GTA or a Skyrim? When all you really need to win Game of the Year these days is to slap some 90s nostalgia on it, make a game so easy to play that even the Cuphead guy can beat it, and then call it a day. It just, devalues the medium is kind of the point. Besides the whole music part and how much that costs, which is already absurd, I know. You can't reasonably look at Mixtape and tell me that it's somehow just as much a video game as, say, a Dark Souls or an Elden Ring. Like, you're lying. There was this post on Twitter about a week or so ago, as you can see there, where a user shows the interactive gameplay of Mixtape, and as you can see as well, right, it has over 30 million views, and that's for a good reason. Because the gameplay shown it's not gameplay. It's a movie where you get to press a button and something may or may not happen. For example, you can press a button to make a character press a car light in the back seat. That is not gameplay. It's as much gameplay as you could call you hitting continue on a main menu screen gameplay. That really isn't it. The gameplay is what usually comes after that, when you actually play the video game. This is why this all feels very disingenuous. It feels like the gaming media is trying to change and force behaviors that we do not want to be normalized because, well, none of this seems authentic at all, man. And I've spoken to some people who, work in games from indie to AAA about Mixtape myself, and the overall reaction they had to Mixtape scores is, well, them rolling their eyes at best. Because even they think the whole thing is, manipulated by design. I wish I could tell you who I spoke to, because these are people who have definitely worked on games that you guys all love. But I'll just say, they think Mixtape is stupid, and they're sick of games media artificially boosting nonsense like this over real games. Polygon even admits here in the highlighted section that Mixtape is like it was made in a lab to specifically cater to the modern games journalist, which I agree. The gaming equivalent of jangling keys with its totally indie production values. Please believe us. They also, Polygon, tried to use the game Stray, which was also by Annapurna, as a gacha, because that got nominated for Game of the Year in 2022. However, Stray at least is a video game. If you've never played it, you play as a cat in that game, and you have to, actually move around and do puzzles and, play the game. Dean Takahashi would have a much harder time beating Stray over Mixtape, that's for sure. Which kind of tells me that Stray is then far more a video game if the Cuphead tutorial guy will struggle to beat it, which he probably would, let's be real. And at this point, if I'm being honest, I really do actually hope that every gaming news outlet nominates and also lets Mixtape win Game of the Year, and no, I am being serious. It's not because I think the game deserves the win. No. I want it to happen, right? Just to prove how astroturfed and by community, I can't even speak, community everything is, okay? I want Mixtape's developers to walk that stage in their sweaters that probably cost more than my rent and collect the stupid statue just so that I can laugh out loud, because I know if that happened, the reaction by everybody online, oh my god, dude, that would result, honestly, in the most delicious discourse imaginable. I want it to win any Game of the Year too. Hell, you know what? Let it win RPG. It's not even an RPG. Let it win everything at this point. It's a shooter now too, okay? It's gonna win everything, because for a gaming news media, no matter the website, so many of them are gonna let this game win stuff, and it's gonna ruin their credibility even more already. already. And having Mixtape win those awards, it would be like the javelin dude to the hulking beast that we're all hunting and waiting for. Oh my, I truly do hope it wins, man, because it will prove just how much of a sham this whole thing really is. Ah yes, the game with basically no gameplay, with jangling key mechanics and songs that will exist in perpetuity, has won Game of the Year, but it's indie. I would love that. Please let it happen. I can already see the Twitter comments and the reactions. Oh, it would be glorious. Seeing the trained monkeys dance while the crowd throws the entire kitchen sink at them, because they clearly no longer speak or have any connection to those that they serve. My God, I want that to happen so badly, you have no idea, dude. To have this game exist the way that it does, and, somehow have these forever songs, when the financials behind such things are complicated to say the least, that would be hilarious to have it win. Mixtape's entire identity is the songs that exist within it, right? It's like the perfect weapon created in some lab somewhere. As if it was created to weaponize licensed nostalgia with recognizable music in that curated cultural memory hole that is the 90s. I would know because I was born in the 90s, like a Stranger Things level atom bomb, man. This was made by engineers with mullets and billion-dollar publishing rights behind them. It's funny because this whole thing proves that modern games journalism deserves every ounce of criticism that does get thrown their way. That they absolutely do prioritize aesthetics and industry relationships and curated narratives over what players actually care about these days. I can't speak today, I'm sorry. Oh, the game has no gameplay? Oh, that's fine. If I give this a good review, maybe they'll pay for my hotel room when the next big game hits the news cycle. I'm gonna give this game a 10 out of 10, so they know that I'm a yes man. This way, I'll keep my job. And then they'll keep sending me to places around the world and I can rub elbows with others that are like me. Who cares if the viewership hates us? They're beneath us anyways, right? They don't have the access, we do. I guess access just matters more than trust these days, and the damage being done here is catastrophically bad. But do you really think the journalists care? I don't think so. If all they gotta do is give the indie music game a high score and that means they'll get flown out to the Game Awards every year, well, then it's all worth it in the end. It's all by design, right? The commercialization of nostalgia itself is really no accident either. To have an entire project built around carefully engineered emotional recognition like this, I mean, come on. It's almost genius even. The visual identity, the cultural ties. Look, it's indie. Just ignore, how many, unique 3D assets were made for the game and how much it all costs. Just remember, it's all about selling an experience. Not really to you. I mean, you're not the audience for this. It's like you or me can give the developer statues made in a factory with the words Game of the Year on it and have it mean anything, really. It's for the journalists though, right? Because they can do that. So you got to make sure you wet their lips first, and only because, if I'm being honest, this game probably did not make any meaningful money, but it's going to win awards, and that's really the point that matters in the end. It's why this is happening. It's not because people really hate the game, well, I'm sure some do, but it's because this unintentionally highlights one of the gaming's deepest struggles, right? Which is that it's all by design, and that a lot of it is not real. And it's clear a lot of people are getting tired of pretending based on how things have gone down, haven't they? Mixtape, well, it may end up resonating with people. Its soundtrack might become another Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 hit, or they hope so. I doubt it, but But this discourse here, it feels sour, and the whole discussion around it feels inauthentic either way. What I really want you to take away from all of this is that what matters the most to those who speak and defend the games industry is always going to be access and relationships. Nothing is going to come close to those two for them ever, right? Like the review copies, the early access, the interviews, that is what legitimizes them, or they think anyways. It doesn't automatically mean that it's corrupted, but it does create the idea for incentives to exist, doesn't it? The incentives to maintain and preserve those relationships, incentives to avoid becoming the outlet that the other outlets cut out from the next big game or story. You have to be in that group. This is why this feels gross, because the way the industry frames Mixtape, it's less about gameplay substance to them, and it's more just, you just don't know how to appreciate art, okay? Gamers they don't like creativity anymore. This is why unique games struggle, don't they? But what they do try to turn practical criticism, which is what a lot of this actually is, into making it seem like it's not socially acceptable or something anymore. And this is why, with Mixtape, you see the very obvious concerns get minimized all the time, don't you? And you begin to question, wait a minute, is this coverage of this game meant to serve the audience like me, or just the industry momentum and the people within it instead? I kind of think you know the answer. Sure, that skepticism didn't emerge overnight. It built over years of everybody not in the circle feeling like real criticism was being filtered through what I could only call institutional comfort instead. And I guarantee you guys, when Lord Lords of the Fallen 2 comes out this year, watch the reviews, okay? Pay close attention to the opinion pieces too. You're gonna see a lot of the usual suspects try to bury that game the same way they have tried with other games they didn't like either, and that will also prove that these people want to control what has access and what gets nominated and all of that, and it's all based on ideology in the end anyways, even if they won't admit it. Because what this all comes down to is very simple. It's about what's allowed to exist by the words of the people who think that they're the ones in charge. And every single time, legitimate player concerns are being tossed aside and called negative or misunderstood, yep, that gap is going to widen like the Grand Canyon for sure. Ultimately, you have what you have because the people who buy games do not feel like they're being spoken to anymore, and that is the point. Instead, they feel like they're being spoken at. And now that a lot of people are starting to realize this coverage and defense only exists to sustain the relationship between product and reviewer, well, the credibility being damaged is going to be really hard to rebuild now, won't it? And when you just want honesty, it seems far too much to ask from a gaming media sphere that struggles to answer anything without some baggage behind it. So honesty, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. It does. And that is why you have what you have with Mixtape. It may not be a disaster, but boy, does it feel about as fake as it gets, doesn't it? Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to. Let me know what you think as always, and I'm guessing by this video existing, yep, I'm never getting invited to the Game Awards, will I? Oh well, at least I don't have to lie like others do.